UFC Fight Night at the Apex, Dern versus Ribas 2, first event of the year. And even though it was at the Apex, it was actually pretty solid. Before we get into it, guys, please like, comment, and subscribe for me so I can keep pushing out content for you guys. Let's get into my review of this card. Guys, in the main event, we had a rematch between Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Ribas. Both of these girls have been kind of up and down ever since their first fight, where I believe it was Mackenzie's third fight in the UFC. Highly touted at the time. She still is. People believe she has a lot of potential. Amanda Ribas played spoiler to her in the first fight and pretty much dominated her for 15 minutes. Mackenzie had a very low level striking at that time and really could not do anything and was not able to establish any type of ground game. So Amanda in the first fight really did her in for 15 minutes. Fast forward 5 years later, Mackenzie Dern wins the main event by armbar in round 3. I think going into round 3, this fight was 1-1, but over the course of those 2 rounds, I felt like Mackenzie was doing the best at implementing her game plan. In the first round, she had some pretty clean striking into I believe it was a single leg takedown, got Amanda down, and rode her out for a lot of that first round. Second round comes, Mackenzie goes for another takedown. Amanda reverses it with somewhat of a head and arm throw, head and arm trip, gets on top. Mackenzie does manage to open her up from the bottom with an elbow that she snuck in there. Nonetheless, Amanda was able to maintain top control for most of that round until there was a little bit of a scramble at the end, and Mackenzie did get top position, but was not able to do much with it. Going into round 3, Mackenzie ended up on the bottom again, threatens Amanda with an armbar. Amanda is able to hang in there for a good amount of time. Mackenzie was on the bottom. Mackenzie uses it to sweep Amanda, gets on top. There's about 30 to 45 seconds left in the third round. Mackenzie starts mixing in some ground and pound, but at the same time, she is trying to trap an arm from mount in order to spin out into the armbar. Mackenzie's mixing in the ground and pound. She finally spins out into the armbar and is able to pry Amanda's grip open to get the submission with 4 seconds left in the third round. Overall, I feel like this was a very good performance from Mackenzie. She has been very up and down. She did win her last fight, but before that, she's been trading wins and losses. She'll look good, and then she'll go into the next fight and look like she's taking a step back. I believe her last couple fights, I don't think she was working with Jason Perillo on her boxing. I think she stopped using him for a bit, but I was very happy to see that he was back in her corner for this fight. And I do think this is the best Mackenzie striking has ever looked as far as offensively and defensively. She was mostly on her P's and Q's defensively. In the past, we've seen her be able to deliver offense, but defensively, she takes a lot of damage and is wide open. This fight, she really did not take too much damage. Amanda did land some kicks. They both traded calf kicks numerous times. But overall, Mackenzie did not take very much damage. In that first round, she landed that beautiful single leg takedown where she mixed up her punches, shot in, bounced Amanda's back off the cage, turned her around, and got the takedown. Second round, Amanda did look pretty good, had top position, but overall, like I said, I feel like Mackenzie really controlled most of this fight. And now we kind of have to see, where does she go from here? She was at 6 and Amanda was at 8. So now you have Amanda Lemos, Jessica Andrade, Verona Jandaroba, Yan Xiaonan, and Tatiana Suarez in front of you. Those top 2 are probably going to be very hard fights for Mackenzie. I wouldn't mind her running it back with Andrade. Andrade beat her last year. Not last year, beat her in 2023 at Madison Square Garden. I think this is a Andrade that has slowed down a bit since then. It would be good for Mackenzie to get that one back. She just got back the Amanda Ribas win. To get back a win against Jessica Andrade would be very nice for her. I don't know if she's quite ready for Yan Xiaonan and Tatiana Suarez, but if she is able to get a win over Andrade, she is right up there in the mix for a title shot. Co-main event, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Carlton Harris. Defeats Carlton Harris at 3:13 in round 3 by standing TKO. This was a super back and forth fight. Ponzinibbio looked like he was out of there at points, as we've seen in many of his other fights. Carlton Harris caught him with that same combination pretty much that Kevin Holland caught Ponzinibbio with to put him away. That like lanky jab followed by that looping right hand. Not really an overhand right, but just a looping straight right hand. Ponzinibbio, man. The guy is on like death's doorstep in some of these fights and manages to come back. He is always one of the most entertaining guys in the sport. Yes, he is not at the top of the division anymore. At one point, he was like a top 5 contender at welterweight. He is not that guy anymore, but he really is must-see TV every time he fights, win or lose. You cannot be mad at a Santiago Ponzinibbio fight being on the card. There's not much to say about this fight other than it was a back and forth war. Pretty sure Ponzinibbio got knocked down 3 times on his way to this TKO finish in the 3rd round. Carlton Harris, very, very good fighter, solid striker. But Ponzinibbio, I think he's just too much of a vet. He is going to be a tough out for anybody in that, 13 to right outside the top 15 area. He is a real test for guys that are trying to crack that top 15 in the division. Let's take a look at where we think he goes from here. The only ranked guy that I could see him fighting maybe is like a Vicente Luque. All those other guys I think would probably tune him up at this point. Very entertaining fight. Honestly, was probably my fight of the night over the Kopylov and Curtis fight. Nonetheless, very, very gutsy and good performance from Santiago Ponzinibbio. Love watching him fight. Cannot complain when he is on the card. This fight was definitely the knockout of the night, I'm pretty sure. I couldn't imagine them giving it to anybody else. Cesar Almeida versus Razak Al-Hassan. Man. 1 round is all it took for Cesar Almeida. Cesar Almeida, if you don't know, was a pretty decorated kickboxer. Came over here. He's relatively old. I think he's 36. But, man, if he's going to deliver fights like that, you got to watch him every time. This was just a 1-round banger. At one point, Al-Hassan drops Cesar Almeida to his back with a straight right hand. Gets on top. A little bit of ground and pound. Can't get the finish. They get back up. Al-Hassan is still on him like white on rice. He's hurting him. Almeida's back is against the cage. Al-Hassan starts throwing some loopy punches. Almeida sneaks a left hook in there right on the temple and puts him out like a light. That was a gorgeous knockout. Not much to say there other than just an amazing finish from Cesar Almeida. Roman Kopylov defeats Chris Curtis. This was the fight of the night, according to Dana White and the UFC. Defeats Chris Curtis by TKO at 4:59 of round 3. 1 second left. Now, I do think that Chris Curtis was going to lose this fight by decision anyway. And honestly, I'm not too mad at the stoppage. Chris Curtis, the fight ending sequence, throughout the fight, he kept getting tagged with that straight left hand. Both of these guys were southpaw. A couple of times you would see Chris Curtis's knees buckle, but he would get through it. But this final time in the 3rd round, Roman Kopylov lands that straight left hand, follows it up with a head kick, knocks Curtis off his feet. He's on all fours, doesn't put his hands up, is looking in the wrong direction at one point, and then looks to find Kopylov. Kopylov treats it like a walk-off knockout. The ref steps in and stops it after taking a second to look at Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis and his corner were very upset with the stoppage because there was 1 second left. I honestly don't think you can be too mad at it. I think it's Big John McCarthy who has said this. If you see a fighter get rocked or on the verge of being knocked out and their eyes are not following their opponent, that fight should probably be stopped because that guy is so rocked. He's not aware of his surroundings and where his opponent is. He can't even track them. He's not trying to track them. And that's really what it looked like to me from Chris Curtis for a moment. He was literally on all fours, just looking straight, and then he finally found Kopylov, but Kopylov walked off. If Kopylov would have tried to finish that fight, I mean, time probably would have ran out, but it wouldn't have gotten any better for Chris Curtis, so I am definitely not upset at that stoppage. Chris Curtis is one of those guys that he trades wins and losses, but he's always in great action-packed fights. He kind of has a Sean Strickland-ish style, but not quite as good, obviously. Roman Kopylov, he would be potentially, a top 10 guy if he could kind of get that gas tank a little better. In the first round, he kind of tried to pour it out on Curtis, and he looked to be gassed. Took the second round off, which I think Chris Curtis won. And then that third round was obviously Kopylov. I understand it's, possible that Chris Curtis would have won that fight on decision, but I thought Kopylov would have won regardless. I gave him the first and the third, but you never know. Absolute banger of a fight. Great action. Both of those guys, it was a super skilled boxing match for the most part. Great fight. Christian Rodriguez defeats Austin Bashi. Honestly, I don't want to say I saw this coming because watching Austin Bashi on the Contender Series, he is a very, very good prospect, and I completely understand why he was the favorite to go into this fight. But Christian Rodriguez has a lot more experience. I believe he's had 5 or 6 fights in the UFC at this point. I think he's also off the Contender Series. Pretty sure he is the one that beat Chiwiwis. But Austin Bashi was a heavy favorite. I think he was like a minus 250 going into this fight versus Christian Rodriguez, who is older, looks to be coming into his frame at featherweight, coming up from 135 because I think he missed weight a couple times. He's very solid, very well-rounded guy. I think he trains at Rufus Sport. To start that fight, he timed that knee, that kind of like a flying knee going straight into Bashi. Bashi does manage to get the clinch and get the takedown. Christian Rodriguez popped up. They had multiple scrambles throughout this fight, and I think the biggest thing was the experience factor at this level. This was Austin Bashi's first fight in the UFC outside of the Contender Series, and you could just see the difference in experience from a UFC veteran like Christian Rodriguez, who is very well-rounded. It was a back-and-forth fight. You couldn't have been mad if Bashi got it, but I didn't think he was going to go in there and dominate Christian Rodriguez, which is exactly what happened. He went in there and it was a very tough fight, and he just so happened to come out on the losing end of it. But Austin Bashi still has a super bright future. His grappling is very good. He mixes in the striking to set up the takedowns. A very well-rounded kid. Excited to see where he goes from here. Just needs to take a step back and build on some lower level competition, but obviously still UFC caliber. But they should take their time with him because I feel like he does have a lot of potential. Kick off the main card, you had Soriano defeating Uros Medic by knockout in 31 seconds. Honestly, I forgot about that. That was a very good performance from Soriano. I think this was his welterweight debut, they were saying on commentary. He was up at middleweight before. He was absolutely diced at welterweight and looked very good. As good as you can look in 31 seconds. He put Medic away super quick. Beautiful right hand, followed up by some ground and pound. Not much else to say. Excited to see where he can go from here. Honestly, that's a guy who we should look at who he could match up with in that top 15. I wouldn't mind them doing a Vicente Luque fight, a Michelle Pereira fight. Oh well, no, Pereira's up at middleweight now. I forgot, but Vicente Luque, he's kind of the gatekeeper for that top 15, and Soriano is a vet up at middleweight, so I wouldn't mind them giving him a top 15 guy for his second fight at welterweight because he ran through Euros Medic. Overall, guys, this was a solid way for the UFC to start the year with a fight night at the Apex. Very good main card, couple of finishes, couple of great fights. I am so excited for next weekend. I can't even describe it. We will have a breakdown coming soon. Guys, that is all I got for you. 2025 is going to be a great year for MMA, and I'm so excited to keep growing this channel with MMA and all the other things that I do. Please like, comment, and subscribe for me, and I will see you guys in the next video.